In this skill, we're going to be comparing the structures of two acids to determine which one is going to be more acidic based on which one is going to have the more stable conjugate base. Remember, more stable conjugate base results in a more acidic acid because more of the acid is going to convert into that conjugate base. Okay, so in this question, we're comparing hydrochloric acid, HCl, and hydrofluoric acid, HF. So in this one, we're going to be thinking about the difference between these conjugate bases. Chlorine and fluorine both have a -1 charge, but they have different atomic radii. So looking at our periodic table, we know that atomic radii increase as we go down the periodic table because we're adding shells of electrons. We also know that they increase going right to left along our periodic table. The reason why is that we're adding more electrons, but we're also adding more protons, which pull those electrons in closer, decreasing the atomic radius as we go from left to right. So comparing fluorine and chlorine, chlorine is below fluorine in the periodic table, so it's going to have a bigger radius than fluorine according to our trend that we have an increasing radius going down the periodic table. So which has a bigger radius? The answer is going to be chlorine. So now thinking about the charge density, both chlorine and fluorine have a charge of 1- on their ions. However, the most stable conjugate base is going to be the one that has the charge density most spread out. So it's not concentrated on a really small area. So since chlorine has a bigger area than fluorine, the charge density is going to be much more spread out. So that means that Cl- is going to have the charge density more spread out because it has that bigger atomic radius and bigger volume. So which is going to be more stable? The answer is going to be chlorine because the charge density is more spread out. That's going to mean it can be more stable. So if this is the more stable conjugate base, according to our rule written up at the top, HCl must be the more acidic acid. So we can fill that in here. So our first rule we found here is that if charge density is more spread out, the conjugate base is more stable. And remember, a more stable conjugate base means a more acidic acid. Let's try a different question. In this question, we're comparing the theoretical acidity of water, H2O, and methane, CH4. So first we're asked, which element is more electronegative, oxygen or carbon? So let's head to our periodic table. Electronegativity increases as we go up the periodic table and increases as we go left to right on the periodic table as a general rule. So here we have carbon and here we have oxygen. Oxygen is to the right of carbon, So oxygen is going to have a higher electronegativity than carbon. So which is more electronegative? The answer is going to be oxygen. So looking at our conjugate bases here, the oxygen and the carbon are the atoms that have the extra electron on them. That's why the negative charge is drawn on those atoms. So the oxygen and carbon atoms have to be able to accommodate that extra charge. So the question is, which of those, oxygen or hydrogen, is going to be more able to accommodate negative charge? The answer here comes from which one is more electronegative. More electronegative elements are more easily able to accommodate negative charge. And if they're more easily able to accommodate it, that means the conjugate base is going to be more stable. Making the conjugate base more stable. So which is more able to accommodate negative charge? It's going to be oxygen, the one with oxygen, which is OH minus, because oxygen is more electronegative. So which is going to be more stable? It's going to be the one with the oxygen, which is hydroxide OH minus. This one is going to be more stable. And therefore H2O is going to be more acidic than CH4. Let's fill that in here. OH minus is more stable, which means that H2O is going to be more acidic. According to our rule up here, that a more stable conjugate base means we have a more acidic acid. In this question, we're comparing hypochlorous acid, ClOH, and hypofluorous acid, FOH. First, we're asked which element is more electronegative, Cl or F. So let's head to our periodic table. Again, electronegativity generally increases as we go up the periodic table and to the right. So if we're comparing F and Cl, F is above Cl, meaning F is going to be more electronegative than Cl according to our trend. So which is more electronegative? It's going to be F, fluorine. We're then asked which conjugate base has a more effective electron withdrawing group. So let's have a look over here. So we've got both of our atoms that have that extra electron on them. Those are called the acidic atoms. Both of those are oxygen. So those are the same atom as each other. They have the same electronegativity, but they're attached to different atoms. So this oxygen is attached to a chlorine, and this oxygen is attached to a fluorine. So these are called electron withdrawing groups. If they're very electronegative, they're going to be more effective at pulling the extra electrons closer towards them, meaning that the charge will be more spread out over the whole molecule instead of just sitting on the oxygen. So which has a more effective electron withdrawing group? That's going to be the one with the higher electronegativity, which is going to be fluorine. So FO minus has a stronger electron withdrawing group, which is the F. So the answer is going to be the FO minus. Therefore, which one has the charge density more spread out? Again, that's going to be the same. It's going to be FO minus. Because that fluorine is pulling more of the electrons towards it, the charge is more spread out over the whole molecule. Whereas on the ClO, the charge is more left just on the oxygen and it's less well spread out. So the answer is on FO minus, the conjugate base has the charge density more spread out. And if the charge density is more spread out, the conjugate base is more stable. So which is more acidic? Well, we know the one with the more stable conjugate base is the more acidic acid, so it's going to be FOH. Let's add another rule to our list. A more electronegative electron withdrawing group means charge density is more spread out. Which makes the conjugate base more stable. Let's do one more question. In this question, a scientist is comparing the theoretical acidity of acetic acid, CH3COOH, and ethanol, CH3CH2OH. In this question, we're asked, which conjugate base has a greater number of resonance states? So let's have a look over here. We have each of our acids converting into their conjugate bases, and here we've been given the structural formulas of our conjugate bases. So for CH3COO-, we actually have two possible forms that it takes. The double bond could be down here with the acidic oxygen here, or the double bond could be here with the acidic oxygen here. So we have two resonance states for CH3CO-. CH3CH2O-, on the other hand, only has one resonance state or one form. So which has more resonance states? The answer is CH3COO-. We're next asked which conjugate base has the charge density more spread out over the whole molecule. Now, looking at our structural formulas, if we have more resonance states, that means my acidic oxygen could be here or it could be here. So in reality, we get a kind of hybrid between those, and the charge is spread out between both of those oxygens. In this structural formula, however, the charge is always on this one oxygen here. So the charge is going to be more spread out in the situation where we have more resonance states. That's going to be our fourth rule. A molecule with more resonance states has charge density more spread out, making the conjugate base more stable. So we decided the compound which has a more spread out charge density is the one that has a greater number of resonance states, which is CH3COO-, which means that conjugate base is more stable because the charge is more spread out. So finally, which is more acidic? It's CH3COOH, because it has the more stable conjugate base, and a more stable conjugate base means a more acidic acid. So to summarize, in these questions where we're looking at acidity trends, we're looking for the more stable conjugate base. That's going to be our more acidic acid. And to determine which conjugate base is more stable, we're looking for one that can most easily accommodate the negative charge that it has. So that could mean that it has a bigger radius or volume, so the charge is more spread out. It could mean the acidic atom is made of a more electronegative element, so it can more easily accommodate that negative charge. It could mean that we have a more electronegative electron withdrawing group, helping the charge to be spread out over the whole molecule. Or it could mean that we have more resonance states, meaning our charge again is more spread out over the whole molecule.